Danielle, it's a situation where I feel like this is a test for the global community and our collective humanity. And specifically, what we're witnessing is an ongoing tragedy. The start date was not last week. And it's a situation where when people say, oh, both sides, no, it's the story of Israel and Palestine. It is connected. You cannot talk about Israel without talking about the occupation. You cannot talk about the future of Israeli security without talking about the future of Palestinian security. It is interlocked. And what we're seeing in the most tragic fashion is, and let's be honest here, the world forgot about Palestinians. United States, Israel, and Arab nations, right? They're like, it's the status quo. We'll let 2.2 million people in the Gaza Strip, which has been compared by pretty much every single humanitarian organization as an open-air prison, Danielle. 2.2 million people stuffed in like the space of Rhode Island, okay? Surrounded by all sides, okay? So people, the Israel's defenders who are completely incapable of being self-critical say, oh, well, they removed the settlements. Okay, where can 2.2 million Gazans go? In the south, blockaded because of Egypt. In the north, Israel. On the left, there's a small thing called the Mediterranean Sea. And who controls the air, the land, and the sea? Israel. The conditions are so bad, folks. They're so bad that 90% of the drinking water is contaminated. 50% of the population's children. You have a unemployment rate of 60%. Generation after generation has just endured trauma and war. And now you're seeing, you've always heard people say, well, turn it into a parking lot. We're going to flatten Gaza. Okay. If you flatten Gaza to punish Hamas, Hamas is not the Palestinians, Palestinians are not Hamas. Who's going to die, Danielle, when 2.2 million people cannot escape? When you flatten Gaza and you use language like this, what happens? People die. And then I will say this, and look how easy it is, folks. Hamas is a violent, militant organization that is committing war crimes, that has failed the Palestinian people, and is killing Israeli civilians. It does nothing to bring security and peace to the Palestinian people. It does nothing to bring security and peace to Israelis. If you have any moral consistency, if you claim to care about children, then your heart should bleed when you see a dead Israeli kid or a dead Palestinian kid. But if you look at Palestinians and see them as Hamas, who are worthy of being flattened and turned into a parking lot, if you say things like, well, Palestinians have died and Israelis have been killed, if you say stuff like, well, Israel has a right to respond to this latest terrorist attack in any way they wish, in any shape or form, without restraint, then Danielle, are you not a participant in genocidal language? And are you not a participant in genocidal policies? And what does that say about you and your morality? If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
So here is what I will start with, which is you are not wrong. And here is what I will offer. And this is what I have said recently on my solo show, Woke AF. And I will say again here, which is that where we find ourselves when you are looking, to your point, at photos, videos of desecrated bodies of Israelis, of desecrated bodies of Palestinians. And for one, your heart weeps. And for the other, it is numb. You are being played.
That's right.
Because humanity and a care for humanity is to recognize that the violence that is being perpetrated, aided and abetted by violent and greedy politicians with their own immoral agendas, is what is feeding you right now on your social media platforms, feeding you through corporate media structures. Because to look at the desecrated bodies and to not feel the deepest sense of grief, regardless of how those people pray, regardless of how they love, regardless of what they look like, regardless of how they identify, is to align yourself with propagandists and those that are so depraved in their mind and their body and soul that they see no interconnectedness that you offered at the top. Because the fact is there are people right now who are imminently connected to the trauma that is unfolding, whether they are European Jews, American Jews, African Jews, whether they are Palestinians that are sprinkled around the world, people who are connected to the Muslim faith and are looking at what is happening and are just in shock and in horror. The fact is that we should all understand that our humanity is intertwined. Yep. And it's what we spend so much time talking about on this show, that it isn't just a conversation about democracy or democracy-ish. It is about what kind of world do we want to be a part of, right? And so when I see people, and I said this on my other show, when I see nation states turning their significant statues and buildings blue in solidarity with Israel, the question that I ask is, what color is humanity? Because that's the color that should be portrayed on every building. That's the avatar that should be put up. What is that color? Because to support and to watch this, as somebody had said on social media, as if you're watching a video game and you're arguing with people on social media as if this is like a sport and you're choosing a side, is the epitome of dehumanization and depravity.
Yeah.
So I really say to people that if you cannot, in the same way that Emmett Till's mother opened his coffin to show the world the brutality of white supremacy, that her son's life mattered just as much as a white child's life.
Yeah.
If you can't see that broken, beheaded, abused bodies are human souls, then I don't know what to say. But I do know that you are trapped in a vicious loop of propaganda, and you have to ask yourself, for whose good does that serve?
And it's in service of extremism. And when you say you're being played, I want to bring it back domestically for a second, Danielle. We forget that the United States remains Israel's biggest supporter, militarily, financially, diplomatically, right? Our tax dollars, in part, go to maintain the occupation of millions of Palestinians who, according not to me, even though I've been there and Danielle's been there, but these are the words of Israelis themselves, international human rights organizations, Jimmy Carter, Desmond Tutu, apartheid conditions, folks. Two different unequal laws for two different people. In the occupied territories, Israelis live under Israeli law and Palestinians live under military law, right? In Gaza in particular, it is a humanitarian crisis. It is absolutely brutal, unlivable conditions, all right? So you ask yourself, okay, who does this serve? Does it serve justice? No. People will say it serves security. So then I say, okay, prove to me, Danielle, that these atrocious conditions have helped security. Benjamin Netanyahu, the far-right corrupt leader of Israel, says, I am the security leader. I'm going to fill my cabinet with the most far-right people who care about security. This includes the finance minister, who, by the way, openly said that he is a proud fascist homophobe. His quote. But he won't stone gays, Danielle. He won't stone gays. This includes the National Security Minister, Ben Gvir, another proud fascist, a Kahanist, with a history of inciting violence against Palestinians, right? We have been taught Israel is, the Middle East's only democracy. Israel has the world's greatest security. Israel needs the occupation. You and I have gone there before. We've heard from Israelis. We need the settlements. The settlements help secure our safety. Okay, Danielle, show me and prove to me that this extremism has made us more secure. Mm-hmm. Show me and prove to me as the result of this week that this has actually helped us. On the flip side, in America, well, not on the flip side, on the same side, we have heard the same rope-a-dope from the right wing and MAGA. Show me how they've made us more secure. Look what's happening in the House right now. They freaking, just as of today, they nominate Steve Scalise, who referred to himself as David Duke, yes, the former Grand Wizard of the KKK. He referred to himself as David Duke without the baggage, all right? You have Donald Trump sitting with Nick Fuentes, the leader of white nationalists, right? And you have the promotion of the anti-Semitic conspiracy, the replacement theory that says that Jews are using you and me, Danielle, black and brown people, to weaken and replace Western civilization, which has led to terrorist attacks against black people, against Jews, against Muslims and Latinos. And we see people here inflamed, as you said, traumatized people going straight up genocidal, otherwise sane people that you and I know on social media. And I'm sitting here thinking, number one, you're losing your humanity based on what we've said. And number two, you don't realize you are being played. And it is a divide and conquer technique. And these same forces that are using you and your sympathy right now will turn on you. And so for democracy-ish in this particular podcast, I think I would like to use this time to send a warning to folks and an invitation. Don't fall for it. Breathe. Tap into your humanity. It is okay. You will not lose anything if you condemn the violent actions of Hamas or the violent actions of Israel's government against Palestinians. You will have the moral high ground, people. It is okay to demand to the end of the occupation. And it is okay to call out the hypocritical, especially right-wing politicians who love Israel, but the Jews, not so much. And they're using this to divide our communities during the rise of white supremacy and extremism. And you said something in your really beautiful video that you released earlier today, and I believe it was you, Danielle, that when you went to Israel and Palestine, you went a couple of years ago, as a black queer woman, it hit you. You're like, oh, I recognize this.
Yeah.
I recognize this injustice.